Welcome to the Total Soccer Show World Cup Daily, and a glorious evening for the United States men's national team, whose World Cup campaign began with a 4-1 win over Paraguay. You couldn't have hoped for a much better start than this, ladies and gents.
No, you could not have.
Indeed. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today in Los Angeles, California, Taylor Rockwell, in a terrific mood, no doubt.
Hello, Ryan. How are you? Yes, I'm in a phenomenal mood. That was an incredible game. That was better than I think I could have ever hoped for, especially with how defensive Paraguay have been, how strong they have been. They did not look particularly strong this evening, and I am very happy about it.
Much more on that very shortly. Joining us also, Graham Ruthven. Hi, Graham. How's it going for you?
Yeah, good. That was enjoyable stuff, wasn't it? The last couple of years, or more than couple of years, I guess. Four years at plus of talking about this team, and that felt like the culmination of something. Hopefully not the culmination. Hopefully the's more to come.
We're winning the World Cup.
Well, I think it's pretty much guaranteed now after that.
It's set from now, yeah.
But I had a great time until Gio Reyna scored the fourth goal right at the end to completely nix my spot-on prediction until that point of 3-1 in a Balogun brace. So I'm regretting, Ryan, I think you were telling us that someone had put a $1.8 million bet on Polymarket on the outcome of this game.
Mm-hmm.
I am regretting that now. I put that on 3-1. And so
yeah, you should have gone for like a 1.6 or a 1.5. Hedged the loss a little bit.
I know.
Yeah, never mind. Also joining us, Joe Lowry. Joe? Just kidding. Just a little visual joke.
We do have the auto ability to get Joe Lowry here. Can you do your best Joe Lowry for
Hi,
us?
I'm Joe Lowry. This was the Joe Lowry game. Balogun and Gio Reyna. That's my best. That's what I've got.
I mean, it's dead on.
I thought he was here. Indeed. I thought he was here.
It is cruel that he isn't here, because this was genuinely the Joe Lowry game. Balogun scoring, Gio Reyna scoring, Pulisic looking great until half time. More on that later. But yeah, it was brilliant.
We are streaming live on our YouTube channel. Link in the show notes if you'd like to check us out on there. We're going to be streaming after full time of each of the group stage days. Joe Lowry, he's here in spirit in our studio in Los Angeles right now, but he's actually at SoFi Stadium where he was soaking in the game in person. We're going to get a voice note from Joe later on in the show, so we'll look forward to that. But what a game for the US to start. Perhaps the best ever first half of US play in a competitive match, maybe even the best match overall. We'll get to that very shortly, but to sort of cap off the action, we had the own goal from Bobadilla after 7 minutes to kick things off, and then Foreign Balogun after 31 minutes, having already put the ball in the net, he got his goal. Then a lovely, glorious finish for him just before halftime. Maurizio with the consolation after 73 minutes after a bit of a defensive lapse from the US. We can get into that a bit later too. And then the aforementioned Mr. Gio Reyna ruining Graham Ruthven's prediction with his lovely outside of the boot shot to cap it off. This was the US's joint biggest win at a World Cup, matching 3-0 victories against Paraguay and Belgium in
1934, 1930?
1930. Nailed
there
it.
It is.
Nailed it second time. Good job. Yeah, so that was quite a good World Cup for the US, of course.
So memorable. One of my favorites.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite performances of all time. Am I allowed to go yet? You've held me back for as long as maybe was physically possible.
Do talking.
Okay, I will do talking. Because I will say, and I don't mean this to be hyperbolic, that was the U.S. performance at a World Cup I think I waited my entire life to see. I don't think the U.S. has ever looked that good. The second half, not quite up to the same level as the first. I think that's to be expected. But that first half, like, to set the stage for people who are newer to soccer, younger people, whomever, the U.S. has for so long been a team that just scraps and had to work hard and had to rely on effort. And their historic wins, if you go back and think about it, 94 against Colombia requires an own goal and a very scrappy performance. They are not the dominant team there. 2002 against Portugal, they have to hang on. They concede one in the first half, and they end up with a great win, but it's still kind of scrappy. Algeria, the same thing in 2010. Ghana, the 2-1 win in 2014. And even in 2022, it's a 1-0 win over Iran, right? That sends them to the next round. It's always hard fought. It's always very much like battling tooth and nail till the very end. And so to see a U.S. team that looked so comprehensively dominant in so many different aspects of the game, defensively, in attack, Ryan is timing how long I'm going to take here, I believe. But I just need to say, like there were tears in my eyes after the third goal. As ridiculous as that might be, to see the U.S. play this way, a way that I did not know they were capable of playing and have never seen them play before at a World Cup, was just a truly wonderful experience, and made me so very happy, and to experience it with you two and also Joe Lowry made it even sweeter.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were all broadly positive about the USA's chances coming into this game, but the level of performance in the first half in particular was just absolutely outstanding. I don't have the memory to go back like past World Cups for the US, but like that's the best 45 minutes I've ever seen a US team or men's US team play in any game, really. Like it doesn't not at World Cups, just like any competitive game, friendly match. It was absolutely outstanding. I thought the energy that they had from the start, which was maybe to be expected, like that was maybe the most predictable thing about the performance, was the energy they would have, obviously with it being a home World Cup opener. But the way that they were collapsing on Paraguay in the middle of the field, just the fact they went for the full 45 minutes at that pace. And I thought the most impressive thing beyond that was just like the conviction that they had in their possession sequences and their attacking sequences. I said yesterday at our live show that I wanted to see a continuation of what we'd seen in the two friendlies, the Senegal and the Germany game. That this was another level beyond that, where it just felt like with the rotations that the US were having, there were the two kind of like half space areas where on the left you had, I guess, like Jedi, Tillman, and then Pulisic on that left side. And on the right side, you had Dest, who was coming over to be the high and wide fullback. You had, I guess, McKennie, and then like I guess Balogun running the channels there. It was putting Paraguay in the washing machine on both sides of the field, and they just could not handle it at all. I thought it was absolutely brilliant in that first half.
I imagine, Taylor, if you work for US Soccer right now, you'd be feeling pretty smug and vindicated because essentially that's what you want from Mauricio Pochettino, right? That kind of press, that kind of energy, that kind of performance. That's like they've nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think even after the first goal, we've seen the U.S. score at World Cups. We've seen them score early at World Cups. A frustrating aspect of Greg Berhalter's tenure was how often U.S. teams, when scoring first, would then sit off, would then invite the opponent on.
At the last World
exactly,
Cup.
and not try to kill off games, not try to keep that momentum, but I think try to invite the attack forward and then hit on the break. And sometimes that can work, but more often than not, you end up giving them control of the game. To Graham's point, even after the first goal, like it just keeps going. The press is there. They keep winning the ball back. They suffocate Paraguay. They're fluid in their movement. Their players are dropping in, but then also stretching the back line at the same time. And it was just a comprehensively strong performance in that first half, especially that I don't think we've seen from the U.S., as I've already said. And I do think that's Pochettino finding the right combination of just like grit and fight, which is the thing you have to have at the World Cup, with the tactics and the preparation to kind of blend those two things together to get a hard-fought win where the U.S. won first balls, won second balls, won tackles, made smart choices, didn't get into dumb conflict, and in the end, get the win.
Yeah. And it was a game of two halves, right? To use the cliche here. Obviously, 3-0 up at halftime. A different performance. The game managed differently in the second half. The key difference maker there, Christian Pulisic, right?
Yeah,
Christian
absolutely.
Pulisic, and all the action going through the left channel in the first half, all the energy, and a very different style in the second half when he's not on the field. But Christian Pulisic, we've been worried about him, or many folks have been for a few months with the form in Milan, and wondering whether he would show up on this stage, and he absolutely did here, Taylor.
He did. And the other person who showed up here, I have to say, we've already said it, is Joe Lowry. Because not just for the physical presence here, but I mean, this is the Joe Lowry thesis game. He has said time and time again, he's not worried about Pulisic's form, that when it comes to the World Cup, he will be there and ready to go. He wasn't worried about Gio Reyna coming in and having an impact. He did exactly that. He had tons of faith in Balogun. We talked about this on stage last night at the live show where I had concerns about the U.S. attack. I wondered if Pepe gave them more of like a target option. And in this game, the U.S. looked electric in all of those positions, but it was, to your point, truly Christian Pulisic, who I think caused so much chaos for Paraguay. The way he ran in behind, the way he was dropping into link-up play, the way he was drawing fouls, but taking people on successfully 1v1. And I think when he comes off, Tillman moves out to that left-hand side, and Berhalter comes in, but Tillman isn't going to bring you as much 1v1. He's not going to bring you as much like vertical speed and attacking threat. And so I think some of the dynamics change. You have to adjust. I think that explains some of the slowness to that second half. But that first half was, to me, all about Pulisic and Balogun, and deservedly so.
Pulisic was brilliant in the first half. Do we have any news on his injury, if that's a serious one? Or?
I think Joe is going to provide us with a lengthier update, but the text I saw was something to do with his left calf. As we were told in the broadcast, he mouthed to people sitting in the friends and family section, like, I'm good. But I think Pochettino addressed the media after the game, so we'll know more from
One
Joe
of them was
shortly.
saying, would you like a Bud Light? And you said, I'm good. That was what it was.
He said, it's Mick Ultra for me now, and only Mick Ultra.
Well, it's obviously stating the obvious here, but let's hope it's not serious, because in the first half, it was just such a difference maker for the US. And I mean, it was just Christian Pulisic at his absolute best. We had seen, for Milan, he's been he's been absent for the last few months. But going back to the March window, we saw an energetic Pulisic, but I think we said at the time maybe he was trying a little bit too much. His execution was off. It was all here with the first couple goals. I mean, the first goal comes from Weston kind of getting turned and driving into space. Then he plays it out to Pulisic, who sort of jinks in between a couple of Paraguayan defenders. So right there, just like conviction to get into the box. Obviously, the way that the ball ends up in the back of the net is a little bit fortunate. The way that the US got into the box was really, really impressive. And then for the Balogun, I think it's the first Balogun goal, where Pulisic sets him up from the byline. He just has such a clear vision of everything that's around him. And that was in March. Those were still the things where even though he was getting into those good areas, just that final ball was missing. And it was here when it mattered in the opening game of the World Cup.
Yep. And I think for that goal especially, I think it's also interesting to see the fluctuation in some of the patterns that the U.S. has established, because we saw Pulisic regularly staying wide, but then moving central once Jedi Robinson gets forward or once there's someone else there. So you still have that overload. But that goal is basically Pulisic moving central, Jedi staying deep, Paraguay moving with him, and then suddenly there's a huge amount of space down the channel for him to attack, and he just turns and goes down. It's a beautiful ball by Jedi Robinson, but it is Pulisic's awareness to move central, then move back out, get on the end of it, and play that ball like perfectly for Balogun to finish.
And given, Taylor, how important Pulisic was in this game, does it give you concern if Pulisic isn't available in future games in this tournament, given how in the second half it was going a bit more through both channels, a bit more speculative crosses into the box, which weren't really hitting? It was a very different style going forward without him.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the one hand, if he can't go, you would assume that there is a bit more preparation and instruction to deal with that absence, whereas having to make that change at halftime, it takes a little bit of time bedding in. But still, I mean, you can't watch that first half and come away thinking Pulisic isn't their most important player, even with Balogun getting the brace. Does Balogun get the service he gets? Does he get the space he gets if Pulisic isn't such an obvious threat that Paraguay have to pay attention to? I mean, if he can't go in the next game, it's a huge problem for the United States. I think it would be a bigger problem if he can't go against Turkey. That would be the one where I really want his speed and verticality and directness when we need it. But yeah, there's no way that this U.S. team looks as good and as strong without him.
Oh, for sure. It's a huge issue if this is a serious problem for Pulisic. I have a little bit of trouble with sort of assessing. I think everything we've said has been right about how Pulisic's sort of verticality or
it would be weird if you suddenly were like, never mind, it's all wrong. I've changed everything.
But what I'm trying to get to is like there's a game state thing, right? Where you're 3-0 up. And so there was a point, I think like 50 minutes in, we had a discussion of like, are we worried with how this game's being managed? And ultimately, no. And actually, I think the changes Pochettino made with Pepe and Gio coming on, there was another gear for the US to go to make sure that it wasn't an issue. But I don't know that I think maybe if you have a little bit more time, if Pulisic does have to miss a game, which we all hope is not going to be the case, I don't know whether you look to someone like Tim Weah to bring a little bit of verticality. And he's a different sort of player to Pulisic, but rather than having Tillman, I felt it was a little bit too similar having Tillman on the wing coming inside, maybe a bit more congested. Maybe we'd see another wrinkle with someone like Weah starting a game.
I think the change I really wanted to see was Pochettino's outfit, but we didn't get that, unfortunately.
No.
It wasn't working.
What didn't you
didn't
like
that?
It was the shirt matching the pants and having one button done up on the shirt with the undershirt showing underneath it. It was like, if you're 22 years old and a musician, maybe.
You don't know what Poch is.
It's true.
Just
I do know he's not 26.
Let him fly, Ryan. Let him fly.
Also, that outfit was probably worth more than your car. So
true. This is very true. Who am I to comment on fashion? Indeed. Why don't we talk about following Balogun as well, Graham? Obviously, it's outstanding performance in him. That finish for the second goal, chef's kiss.
Oh yeah.
Him. Everything we wanted to see from Balogun today, wasn't it?
Yep, this was again the thesis statement on another Joe Lowry player. Like, this is exactly what, and like I was bullish on Balogun last night as well. I said like the profile. It's not just that he's a good player; it's the profile of striker that he has and the job that Pochettino wants from his number 9 in his team. And he's just perfect for that. And we saw it in this game where, yes, he does take up good positions inside the box, but he is excellent in transition. He's excellent at running the channels. He's excellent at getting turned and driving at an opposition defender, creating his own shot, as Joe often says. We saw all of it in this game. And he's just, his execution, his finishing right now is on point. And obviously had another goal disallowed as well for a marginal offside. It was nothing to do with him. It was Pulisic in the sort of build-up. So he had,
and also him.
I think he was offside too.
Oh, was he?
There was two.
Oh, right. Okay, there was two.
They both found a way.
Fair.
But I think, and you said it there, Graham, but like to spotlight it a bit more, the third goal, I believe it is, that's the run in behind, correct? Where he times that run perfectly. Like you're the one who spotlighted, like that is what Balogun does so well. He times that run. And then he gets it so that when he is getting on the end of that pass, he's at full speed, at full stride, takes the right touch, finishes it really well. But we just don't have any forwards that I can recall that can do something like that. Like maybe Charlie Davies in his prime is the one I think of as being like explosive and having that finishing ability, but that's a reach, I would say. So to see Balogun do some of the things he did in this game, like it's probably like in terms of finishing ability, maybe Brian McBride historically. It's just been a long time since we had somebody who could do something like that.
It was good. Did you know he's only the second US player to score more than once at a World Cup in a game? And you know, of course, who the other player is, Taylor, because you were an expert of the 1930 World Cup.
Was it not Dempsey? I thought Dempsey had a couple.
I've got Bert Paternotte in
Oh, yeah.
1930. You know, Bert, first ever player to get a hat-trick at the World Cup, that guy.
I do, because I almost put him into the quiz last night and then realized that all of you would have been so pissed if I did that. There's no point. Unless you familiar, Bert?
I've got him on DVD, yeah. His best goals.
Yeah.
Best moments and bloopers.
Yeah, it's a good Christmas present. That. Yeah, you're welcome.
Uh-huh.
Very good. Any other players what we want to spotlight before we head into a break, Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gio Reyna deserves a little bit of a shout there, because that's another one that I was concerned about, unsure about coming in. He didn't have a great season with Gladbach. I don't think a lot of that is his fault. I think it's the manager coming in, changing the tactics, being more defensive. I don't think it played to his strengths, and he didn't get very many minutes. And I was really excited for the prospect of having Diego Luna in this team. So Luna not being there, Reyna being there was a bit of an eyebrow raiser for me. I thought he justified it in this performance, and not just because he scores that goal, but he comes on and it's kind of the definitive Gio Reyna performance of we'll get stuck in, we'll draw fouls, we'll knock people back, doesn't take the bait. And that was a huge thing for the U.S. throughout this game, was not taking the bait once Paraguay tried to make it into a card fest and a foul fest. But then also takes people on, is trying to create, but is also playing safe when he needs to. And then that goal, the reverse angle where you can see the opening in the goal, but how he would have to hit it to make it happen. And the fact that he bends it around that defender, goalkeeper's always going to see it late and have trouble reacting to it as a result. That's just another type of goal that I think you have to have so much self-belief and confidence, but technical ability to execute in that moment. And he did all of that and more.
Yeah, another player that I'd highlight that I thought was excellent was Sergino Dest on the right side. The number of times that he absolutely dusted his man. I haven't actually got that in front of me who that player was, but yeah, he had him on toast at least 3 times in the game where he dribbled past.
He's in witness protection now because he was beaten that much.
That's why I can't find his name. Yeah,
he's been
removed.
Well,
from
Almiron was on that side, right? Was it him? No, probably not him.
Not unsure. But yeah, I thought Dent was tremendous. Honestly, in the first half, obviously there was a couple ragged moments. I thought the first 5 minutes of the second half was a bit ragged, and obviously the goal the US conceded, I thought wasn't a great. I didn't see anything structural in that. I just thought it was reactions. So Richard ends up the wrong side of the man because he's misjudged the header up into the air. Then Ream has to come across, and it's just too much space for him to make up. And so Paraguay are able to pass through. So that wasn't a great moment. But the first half, with the exception of Matt Fries, who I only don't give a rating to because he had nothing to do, I thought everyone was like a 9 or a 10 out of 10 in that first half. And I think Sergino Dest deserves his flowers on that right side. He was tremendous.
Wow, that's high ratings, Graham.
Like the anti-L'Equipe.
Very much so.
Who probably all rated it like 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
Still somehow.
Very
Except
good. All right. We're going to take a quick break, but before we do so, let's hand the reins to Mr. Joe Lowry, who has a voice note from SoFi, what's it called? Los Angeles Stadium now?
Los Angeles Stadium.
Yeah, he's from that place. Listen to this now. Check it out. And if you're streaming with us, you'll have to go and listen to the audio feed to hear Joe Lowry.
But Graham is now going to do an interpretive dance for you in the absence of that. Graham?
Sure.
Oh, wow. Such majesty.
Yeah.
Wow. Fluidity.
This is the magic in the breaks that people miss most of the time.
That was pretty magical.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Should we come back? Welcome back to the Total Soccer Show World Cup Daily in Los Angeles, California. We are still basking in the glow of a 4-1 win over Paraguay for the USMNT. Taylor, could you talk a bit more about the second half and the differences we saw there? Drop in intensity, nothing you wouldn't expect from a team winning 3-0 out of the first half. But anything we wanted to spotlight there in terms of, I think we had a conversation about game management when we were watching the game. And my point was, I think they managed it fine, but I'm not very nuanced about these things. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think it's a things can be two things moment. I think your point is valid. Like they get the win, it ends up 4-1. It's not as though they end up like holding on for dear life or anything like that. So in that way, it's a safe victory. At the same time, I think like we talked about this again in the live show. If you're bringing Berhalter into that midfield, he is naturally going to be a more defensive minded player. He's going to keep the ball moving, but he's not going to be really adventurous with the way he's playing. And so you are sort of doing that if you need stability and just sort of kind of regular possession instead of free flowing attacking options. Not that he can't score or create chances, but that's not really what you're looking for him to do. And so I think if you bring in Berhalter, you move Tillman into a more advanced position, but you're not going to have that verticality and directness from Tillman. Then you do want to, I think, if not slow it down, have more sustained possession. And that I think was the thing that I didn't see as much in that second half. It felt like the U.S. up until the fourth goal, which was a beautiful possession sequence, there was much more like 5 to 7 pass sequences and then trying to go direct or kind of giving it away or occasionally making errant passes and giving Paraguay opportunities. And so that's where it started to feel a little bit more back and forth, a little bit more head tennis at time. And that's where I would have liked to see them fully stamp authority on that game.
Yeah, there was about a 10-minute period where it felt a little bit too open. Obviously, we're so,
Yeah.
4-1 win at an opening,
It is.
a home World Cup is tremendous, right?
Picking the nittiest.
Yeah,
of
for
nits,
sure,
yes.
for sure. But there were, I agree, there was like a 10-minute period where we had that discussion during the game of we would like the US maybe to just have a little bit more sustained possession. It felt like they were still playing the first half game of like, let's get into quick transition moments as quickly as possible without Pulisic, who was the main man to conduct those sort of attacks. And Tillman, as well as he played in this game, does that role in a different sort of way. So there wasn't like that adjustment that happened until the changes happened. And actually, I thought that then turned the screw back in the US's favor. But yeah, that's the smallest of nitpicks.
There was even like moments I kind of felt bad for Tillman. There's like a couple in like around the 70th minute where he's kind of played into the corner. And you can see him chase it down and just be like, I'm not Pulisic, guys. Like, this is, please don't make me keep running after these. I'm just going to try to hold it on. And I think there's one where he ends up like back heeling it out of bounds, trying to play it off of a Paraguayan player, but he doesn't really have much around him. But even then, I do think once we started to see Jedi then getting more aggressively forward more regularly, because Tillman isn't going to provide you that threat, it did seem like after they kind of stabilized a little bit the U.S. without Pulisic being there, I did think that they kind of found the rhythm that they needed. And then obviously they find the fourth goal as well.
Yeah. Now, at risk of torpedoing the joy of this moment.
Why?
It's a risk, Taylor. But I'm going to take it.
Okay.
Because we need to talk about Paraguay. We mentioned they were, a pretty strong team going into this.
4-time world champions, Paraguay.
Yeah. Do you know what they did in 1930? What's some more stats? As good as they've been, Taylor, going into this tournament, they were not very good, with all due respect, in this game. Bit ponderous, not much forward passing. Obviously, they get the goal in the second half when the game state changed a little bit, but they were disappointing.
Absolutely. And I previewed Paraguay for our preview series, and I was nervous about this game because when they make the coaching change that they make halfway through qualifying, they are not doing well in qualifying. And then they have the best run of form to close out World Cup qualifying in South America. In their final 8 or 10 games, they have so many clean sheets. They are rock solid defensively, but they also spring surprises and are able to get results by countering and by capitalizing on set pieces. And had been in okay form. I felt like the loss to the U.S. in the friendly earlier in the year, or was that 2025? 2025.
Who knows?
It was one of those years. Whatever. Yeah, exactly. That felt to me very much like an experimental Paraguay team trying to find ways to be more attacking and creative. And I expected this to be just a rock solid defensive team that the U.S. really struggled to break down. And so I think that might have been what they were going to be. It's just that they concede so early in this game that had to check out their entire game plan. And you can sort of see it even after the U.S. score. As I said, it's a credit to the U.S. that they keep their foot on the gas. But it's also Paraguay still kind of having the defensive game plan and not really knowing how to transition from that into trying to take more control and be more attacking. Yeah. So I think it's that early goal completely throws like a wrench into their plans.
And like mentally for Paraguay, I've seen that performance before from a team against a host nation. The last time I saw that at a major tournament, I was in Munich to see Scotland play Germany, where you just end up in quicksand. And I've seen that look in players' eyes where everything is just overwhelming. Like not just the performance of the team that you're facing, and that was the most significant part. Also the atmosphere at SoFi Stadium. Like we'll hear more from Joe, who was there, but over the TV. Sounded really loud, and we've had. There's been discussions about what sort of crowd is it going to be. Obviously, with the ticket prices, is it going to be a Super Bowl crowd? Well, Joe told us before the game it was like the loudest USMNT game he'd ever been to, and that was before kickoff. So I think that was a factor as well. Like Paraguay were just completely overwhelmed by the performance of the US and the occasion, and that resulted in a performance that I didn't anticipate. It sounds like Taylor, you didn't anticipate. They were a lot poorer than expected.
It's a lot of pressure when you're playing and there's been an open ceremony. You've seen Katy Perry and a small child sing. You know, Bill Gates and Paul Allen are there out in the stands.
I found that I didn't care. I don't need to see Bill Gates anymore. He's been in the news. People can Google why. I didn't need Bill Gates and any sort of optimistic coverage about it.
How about Tom Cruise? I'm problematic.
We got a lot of celebrity shots, and I feel like a lot of celebrities didn't realize that they were getting cut to. Like Leonardo DiCaprio, it took us a while to realize that was Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who else we saw.
Paris Hilton was a bit easier to identify. The sparkly Hilton on the back of her US shirt.
That's hot.
I can't believe you said that twice.
Hey, that's what I'm here for. Taylor, in your research of Paraguay, did you tend to find it to be a physical team who'd maybe try and draw their opponents into a fight? Did we see elements of that today?
I mean, yeah, because that is part of South American qualifying. You've got to be able to kind of play that game and handle the dark arts of World Cup qualifying, and that can be playing at elevation, which they navigated pretty well, and then that can be incidents off the ball and just little afters and little moments, and it felt like, especially in the second half, that was a thing they were trying over and over again, of just getting into it with players, little kind of like conflicts after the fact, little bits of trash talking. And I think there's only one at the very end where Tyler Adams has to come in and separate two players. But aside from that, the U.S. just kind of walked away from all those moments, didn't get drawn in. And that is where, again, if you're newer to soccer or to the World Cup, that is a thing teams will try to do, is just little bumps, little knocks, little words, because you get the other player to retaliate. The retaliation is always going to be harsher. And with VAR, it's always going to look worse. That's how you get a player or two sent off, and suddenly you're able to get back into the game. So it is a very specific thing the U.S. were able to do, of be very physical, be very aggressive in their press, but also not get drawn into stupid conflicts and stupid moments.
Yeah, there were a couple edgy moments there with what was the one in the box where
I cursed a few times.
Yeah,
I was a little scared.
There was one in the box where Stu Holden seemed to be talking about a penalty for the US. We were more concerned about a US player getting sent off for a fly kick.
Robinson. Yeah.
And then there was like a Freeman moment out on the byline where he tried like some sort of overhead kick clearance sort of thing. So thankfully none of that was costly. But that kind of tells us how comfortable and dominant the US were, where you go into the final 10 minutes of the game and you're just looking for nothing to sully the performance at all. And thankfully there wasn't, other than the Pulisic injury, of course.
Even Adams on a yellow, and he has one moment where he's on a yellow, he has to, like, I think it's when Freeman gives the ball away, that Adams is then 1v1 defending, has to make sure he doesn't dive in, get exposed. That's an easy point to concede a yellow, and he doesn't. But then he also has one later in the half where he kind of follows through to clear the ball, and I think has the presence of mind to recognize that if I fully extend and follow through, I'm absolutely going to kick this player. And in slow motion VAR replay, it's going to look like I booted him right in the chest deliberately, and it's going to be a red. So he pulls the leg back in a way that he absolutely has to, but then at the same time triggers the contact that ends up with a foul for the US instead of like a potential red card for Adams. So I think, again, that level of like locked in awareness of the situation, it can be a difference maker, and certainly help be a difference maker this evening.
Yeah. And speaking of yellow cards, we did get an interesting moment in this game as well, with Miguel Almiron getting the yellow for simulation, but through VAR review. That's a new one, isn't it?
Hate it so much.
Loved
it was a dive.
Loved it.
Clearly, it was a dive, and that should never have been a booking for Tim Ream in the first place. But
So you hate that justice was done?
We're just fully re-refereeing games now, and that's a new thing, right? Like, so this is where my research, I should have googled this before we recorded this, but is that because Ream was punished that then it goes the other way? Like, for example, if Ream hadn't been given a yellow card, would that have been? It wouldn't have been able to be reviewed, right? Yeah. So that's a new thing. Still hate it.
Can I ask the like not trying to tease you from a like just a your perspective mindset, because to me, I'm aware there's definitely bias there of like, if it had gone the other way, maybe I'd be more like, that's stupid, that shouldn't have happened. But it is in that moment like clear that Almiron is selling whatever contact there may have been. It is a dive. He's trying to get the player booked. And so, like, to me, the best usages of VAR are when an injustice, is the best way I can put it, like, is righted. And in my mind, VAR exists to correct things like the Thierry Henry handball. This is not the same thing as that, but it's that feeling of like, that's not how it should be. That's not fair. Like, this did correct that. And so in my mind, that is sort of a good usage of replay. It sounds like you fundamentally
Oh,
disagree.
totally fundamentally disagree. It's just such a lowering of the bar of like where are we going? Like we can already review corner kicks now, apparently.
But we didn't
Okay, that's
because we
dumb.
had a save that should have been a corner kick that wasn't
Yeah.
reviewed, right?
But it's just at what point are referees completely pointless? Like if it's just being refereed by. I mean, it does get to the
I
point where I'm
want
like, if we're going to do that, like just make the VAR referee the game. I guess.
AI
but
officiating, Graham. Think of the Dow. Think of how much it'll go up.
I will
Come on.
not think of the Dow. Thank you very much.
So, Graham, you're basically angry that the arc of the moral universe tends to bend towards justice. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, for now until
Yeah.
the Scotland game tomorrow, and then I can change my mind again.
Very good. Looking ahead a little bit further beyond the Scotland game, this time next week, the US will be back on the field taking on Australia in Seattle. That's Australia for non-Australian.
What is it, like
natives.
4 weeks now? 4 weeks until the US plays again, based on the number of teams in this tournament?
That's correct. Yes.
Ugh.
It's
Yeah.
we're in this for the long haul, T. It's
So
going to
we
be
are.
okay. But what do we think will bring forward the US from this game? Australia going to be a bit of a different opponent, a bit more attritional in their approach, going to bunker a little bit more, I'd expect, from Paraguay than Paraguay did. So what do we think? Are we going to see the same level of intensity in the first half, or would we like to?
I take your question, I modify it, I direct it to Graham. Graham, like based on what you saw from the United States tonight, if you are Australia, like is it knock them around?
Foster than a Struth.
There it is. Is it put a shrimp on the Barbie and kick the ball along? Like
Yes.
let's just go all the stereotypes. That's night. We're gonna play knifey
Well,
spoony. What else?
I'll take you up on
Give
the
it
what was
boosting.
it? Put a shrimp in the Barbie and
Yeah.
kick it along.
Yeah.
Kind of like you want to get the US turned, right? That's you want to bypass the press, which Paraguay were not able to do at any point in this match. And so I do expect Australia to at least try to do what Paraguay did in this match and failed miserably, obviously, clearly by the scoreline. I do expect them to have a low line of confrontation. I do expect them to bunker at points. I think Tony Popovich, as Australia manager, has looked to youth in the attacking thirds. Like he's brought through a lot of young players. We mentioned in our previews, like Martin Boyle has been left out of this. He's left a few veteran players out for youthful exuberance. So that might actually benefit them where they will have runners in behind. And they need to do, easier said than done, but we saw what Balogun did in this game with covering so much open space and getting into the area like that and getting turned and driving opposition defenders. That's kind of what Australia need to do to push the US back. But I think this might be reductive, overly simplistic. Same again for the US would be good enough. Yeah.
Very good. Now, Taylor, with the way this tournament is structured, 3 points and a +3 goal difference at this point pretty much means you're already through to the next round. I don't have the percentages on that. I'm not an Opta supercomputer, but that seems to be the way we're headed.
Are you not?
No. Breaking news.
Yeah, that's Joe.
Yeah, that's Tal Joe over there. If you're watching on our streaming, he's quite kind of creepy. Taylor, does this give you more confidence of a deeper run in this tournament? We've seen what this Pochettino team can do in a competitive environment, and bear in mind we haven't seen a lot of competitive Pochettino games for the US. Now we have. The proof is in the pudding. Do we feel good about a deep run now?
I don't know. Is my honest answer.
Oh,
to that.
come on. It has to be yes. The answer has to be yes after a 4-1 opener.
I'd say so.
It gives me more confidence that the US is capable of playing that type of game. At the same time, like I want to go back to my opening statement. I've never seen the US play that way at a World Cup and look that good at a World Cup. And so it feels very strange to go from like a groundbreaking performance in my mind to like, yeah, we could do that every single time. I think they can. I think it sets me up to feel like they can play that same game against Australia and create in so many different ways that Australia then have to try to find like ways to plug all those different holes. I don't know if they'll be able to do that. It does then mean even like a point there. At that point, you definitely are moving on because 4 points historically is enough to get you out when you have third place teams going through and even when you don't. And then that sets them up to basically kind of not really care about the Turkey game, which is a historic precedent for the US, not really caring about third game results because other teams have already done things. But I think it does give you some leeway to then go into that knockout round. It's just then, can you keep going against stronger opposition? Can you play that same game? But my biggest concern about this group was having teams that weren't going to be open, weren't going to play to the US's strengths. And here we are playing a team that was going to be bunkered and defensive and kind of open them up. So I guess talking it through, I do end up feeling more confident about the US's ability to make a deeper run because you go up against a bunkered team. Clearly, there's ways of breaking them down, but you go up against a team that's going to want more of the ball and be a little bit more open. I think that is where the U.S. Has more strength and can find more opportunities.
One of the biggest things this result and performance gives the US is a bit of freedom. So
Yeah.
whether or not we're going to see this performance every time from the US at this tournament, I don't know. I would say probably not. Like even the best teams don't perform at the same level throughout a tournament all the way to like the final or the latter rounds or whatever. But as you say, Ryan, like 3 points on the board, it's looking pretty good for the US to get through another point, and they're almost guaranteed to be through. So they actually don't. I'd love to see it again. Obviously, they don't really need to play as well as this in all three of their group games. And then they can kind of keep themselves for the knockout rounds, hopefully getting there. So yeah, it's a huge. It completely shifts the dynamic for this team at this tournament. I think this result.
I have a question for you two. Like I think historically the only times the United States has been a team that like neutrals maybe end up pulling for or enjoying is when they're able to be like giant killers, or when the intensity and the effort and the distance covered like is something that people watch and enjoy. The hustle and the effort. It's a team that scraps. I don't think that really brings in that many neutrals. And I think in this World Cup coming into it, I feel like there's, for many justified reasons, been so much like skepticism of the U.S. in general, but the U.S. national team in particular. I feel like there's been more kind of overt criticism of this team. And I think like there is a reason to not want the U.S. to go far if you are not American. I do wonder, and I ask you both this now, with that performance, like, is that the type of performance that neutrals could sort of begrudgingly get behind? Like, is there any chance that makes some people think like, wow, this U.S. team is kind of fun. Like they're kind of good. Does that turn that narrative a little bit?
I think the latter part you've landed on absolutely. I've already had messages from back home saying like how good the US look and how much better they were than expected. There's other stuff that maybe prevent people from truly pulling for the US. So I don't know if that's going to happen. But what I will say is like that's a result in a performance that electrifies the whole tournament. Like World Cups are always better for having a strong host nation. Obviously, we've got 3 in this competition, but the bulk of this World Cup's been hosted by the US. This tournament, I think most people would accept, it will be more vibrant for the US being strong. So yeah,
I still think also. Sorry, Ryan, I want to hear your answer as well. But I still think also when Iran plays, if there is a very warm reception for Iran from the U.S. crowd, I also think that probably helps people be like, okay, politics is politics, government is government. Like U.S. soccer fans are maybe fun. The Algeria story with Lawrence, Kansas, just like embracing that team and loving them, and the band showing up to play the Algerian national anthem before training. I just hope that this World Cup can end up being a thing that rallies people and reminds everybody that people are ultimately like worth knowing and spending time with instead of, I don't know, building literal walls. Over to you, Ryan.
Well, I concur with what Graham said. I think ultimately we watch this game to be entertained, right?
Yeah.
So if you have an entertaining team who are a host nation who've got the crowd behind them, like the US were here, and you could hear the US in the second half when the crowd were trying to pick the US up with the USA chants. It sounded brilliant in that stadium. So to have that kind of thing as a neutral, I think is fantastic to see. And particularly in a tournament where I think a lot of folks coming into this thinking there's a lot of group stage games which might not be classics. So when you get a game like that and you get the host nation doing it, I think that's really, really good news for the tournament and for the US. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small sample size. We're only on day 2, and this is the last day, I believe, of 2 games of the group stage. Tomorrow it gets real, gentlemen, with 4 games. But like, that's the best performance we've seen from any team so far. So.
Did you hear him say nice things about the U.S. national team?
I know
that perhaps even more unprecedented than this performance from the U.S. is what just happened there.
Have you seen the garment I'm wearing, which is definitely authentic?
Is it breathing at all for you, or is it just full plastic sheeting?
I'm so itchy. I need to. We should take a break at this point. Why don't we? Listener, thank you for joining us so far. When we come back after this break, we're going to talk about Canada and their 1-1 draw with Bosnia earlier today. Do join us then. Itchy dance for the stream.
I'm the only one who doesn't dance now, and it's going to stay that way.
Post show dance from Taylor come. Oh, here it comes. Very good.
Slow vogue.
All right. Let's roll back in with Canada, Bosnia. Here we go. Total Soccer Show. Welcome back to our World Cup Daily. Day 2. We are feeling good after the US performance. Let's talk about Canada's as well. Maybe the Canadians, the Canucks out there, Graham, feeling a little less good about this one. It was a 1-1 draw. In good news, it was Canada's first ever point at a World Cup. That's a good thing. So it wasn't a win. It was that.
Yeah.
But we had Jova Lukic putting Bosnia-Herzegovina ahead with a header following a corner. Then we had Canada having a couple of efforts cleared off the line. And then the substitute, Southampton's Kyle Larin scoring just a matter of seconds, a couple of minutes after coming on to get the equalizer in this one. As mentioned, they'd lost all previous games at this tournament. The Canada co-hosts are on the board. Not a bad game. What do we feel about it?
Yeah, it's certainly not a bad game. There were interesting things about it. And imagine if you're a Canada fan or even Jesse Marsh, you probably got a lot of mixed thoughts about this performance and this result because it was
his thoughts were just about the US and how they're bad, and he does not like them.
That's it. Yeah, he's not been whiny about that job at all. What was it? What was his thing a couple of days ago? He had to beg US players to sing the national anthem. Or...
Yeah, and then Clint Dempsey heard that and had some thoughts of his own. I encourage people to go watch Dempsey's response to that because he did not appreciate what Jesse Marsh had to say.
So Jesse Marsh is getting flack for this, right? For talking about a team he's not coaching at the World Cup, right?
Yeah.
Was he prompted to with this question, or did he come out with it apropos of nothing?
I'm not sure.
Context doesn't matter. How dare you?
Because there's difference in answering a question and bringing up a grudge, right?
It would be weird if they were like, how excited are you to manage Canada at the World Cup? And he was like, I'll tell you what I wasn't excited about, and then just launched into it. You're probably right. There was a like, do you feel a sense of pride singing the Canadian anthem? You know, for you as an American, that would be my guess. It's like, for you as an American, is it weird to sing the Canada anthem? Do you feel some level of patriotism? And that was his response.
Yeah,
would be my guess.
Oh, he was just trying to do tribute to the Peter Griffin grinds my gears segment when he was on Cohog's news channel. I think it might have been that.
Might have been that.
Who knows?
Might have been that.
Who knows?
Yeah, he might have had a lot of mixed thoughts after this game, though that being one of them, of course, about the Family Guy. But I think for Canada, obviously, this wasn't the emphatic. It wasn't the USA's win over Paraguay, right? It wasn't the electrifying. I thought the atmosphere in Toronto sounded amazing and looked amazing. It wasn't the electrifying performance that Canada were hoping for against a very beatable. Like Bosnia deserve a lot of credit for being here, beat Wales and Italy to qualify through UEFA. That's no joke, but a beatable opponent for Canada, and it felt like they got a bit trapped in the game state after losing that goal to Bosnia, the set piece goal. We're only a few games in. We've had Czechia scoring directly from a long throw in. We've had a set piece goal right into the mixer from Bosnia and Herzegovina as well. So the 2026 trends are carrying into the World Cup. But just after that, it felt like, I don't know, Canada didn't have the open play creativity. Maybe it might have been a little bit different if Alphonso Davies had been fit and available to play. Maybe he gets to the byline a little bit more. Maybe he beats a man, opens up some options that way. It wasn't really until Kyle Larin came off the bench and scored that equalizer, of course. Brilliant forward play. Obviously gets very lucky with the deflection on the finish. But the way that he takes it in off his knee and turns the defender, I think it was Joe when we were watching it together likened it to Lukaku, or maybe it was you, Taylor. I can't quite remember. But yeah, it was a perfect comparison. And so I guess Canada got the least of what they deserved out of this game. The silver lining, or more than a silver lining for them, is they've got Qatar next. And I was reading that, and that's going to be a home game, of course, I believe, in Vancouver. I was reading in The Athletic, they still have an 88% chance of making it out of this group. So they avoided disaster. The disaster would have been in defeat, which obviously was on the cards for a long time, but not a performance that made me think Canada are going to have a super deep run at this tournament.
I would agree with that last part, but I would say if you are a Canadian supporter, like, number one, going down the way they did and feeling like with the injuries they have, it's going to be difficult to find a way through. And honestly, with some of the changes that Marsh makes in this game, I thought, like, he's taken off a lot of key attackers. He's taken off a lot of creativity. But at the same time, Kyle Larin kind of feels inevitable, like, especially when he's playing for Canada. And so I think to go up against the Bosnia team, and I'll talk more about them in a second, but like, this Bosnia team can be so difficult to beat and so difficult to break down, that to find a way through, even with the injuries they have, to get the equalizer. And then I think I said, as that game went on, it felt like Bosnia were just resorting to being very physical and trying to just lump it long and then hold on. And I think Canada grew into the game and got more opportunities and got more momentum. And Larin has a chance late, right, that he's obviously not able to convert. But if you are a Canadian supporter, I would say to go 1-0 down, to fight back, to get the 1 point, it's not ideal. It is your first point at a World Cup. Now, to Graham's point, you've got Qatar. That feels like 3 points, and you're kind of building momentum from there. And as I said earlier, 4 points is almost guaranteed to get you into the next round. So I think in that way, they've left themselves in a stronger position than it felt like they might at certain points in this game.
There was also that incredible goal line clearance from Kolasinac, one of the most outrageous goal line clearances I've ever seen. So if that goes in from Richie Larea, then
Whole
you know
different game.
it's an entirely different game. The dynamic changes. So maybe I would soften my what I just said a couple minutes ago. They avoided disaster. They're still very much in this tournament, and they've still got the opportunity to build some momentum from this point.
For Bosnia, though, I think they might be in a little bit more trouble because this was a Bosnia team that qualified, obviously, only their second World Cup. I can't remember if this is their first point as well or if they were able to get one previously, but I think they may have gotten a win the first time. But in this one, and in the qualifying rounds, they just had to fight tooth and nail to get to the position that they're in. And that meant, Edin Dzeko, I think, when they do qualify, he plays the entirety of the game, and I think ends up going to penalties or almost, maybe he's subbed off at the very end, but in the celebrations, he's in a sling because he's injured himself and played through it. I think half that team picks up injuries in the final playoff games and are still kind of fighting through, and it's like a walking wounded performance that ends up getting them here. But that's been the story of them in qualifying, is that they find a way to kind of get the result over the line. And so to not do that here, to not be able to not just hang on, but really not control the game in that second half. They too have Qatar, and I would expect that they will get a result there. But it does make me wonder sort of how much they're able to do against Switzerland, which will be an emotional game. I think there are ethnic Bosnians playing for Switzerland, or certainly living in Switzerland and having played there previously. So there's that sort of connection. So maybe there will be a more kind of impassioned performance. But I think for Bosnia, it's a tough one, especially if they can't have Edin Dzeko involved.
So Dzeko's injured. That has to be the reasoning, right?
He played, in my research for the preview, he was the player for this team. And not just because he's the name, but he was still good with Schalke this season in the Zweite Bundesliga, and was just all over the place for them in terms of being the hold up option who can kind of hold up, lay off, and then get in and get on the end of crosses or get in on the end of low service. And I thought he was going to be the player they needed in this one. They're able to find other talent and other players to kind of come through. But yeah, I'm assuming he's still carrying a knock or not fully fit. But for him to not even be involved in this game, similar to Alphonso Davies, it makes me think maybe there's bigger injuries going on.
Well, he's carrying another 10 years than most of his teammates as well, right?
There is that.
Yeah.
So that does weigh on it.
Is this more plus 40 players than we've ever had at a World Cup? I'm saying that off the top of my head, but it feels like there's more kind of superstars or stars hanging on.
Craig Gordon, of course.
That's the main
among
one.
those stars, 43-year-old Scotland goalkeeper. Yeah.
Yes, that's it. Thank you, Graham.
A lot of
Graham
coaches
made
in
my
their
point.
70s as well in this tournament too. So yeah.
See, Joe's anti-aging policy is coming home to roost.
My other observation is that I love that the Eastern Bloc has produced a Jovan Lukic and a Luka Jovic. That's not confusing at all. I love that. I love that for us.
Weirdly, one has a mustache sometimes and the other one doesn't. It's almost like maybe they're the same.
Ooh, do they have a trench coat? Do they sometimes become a very tall person? I'd like to see that.
You're familiar with this approach. Okay, all right. I didn't know you knew these games.
Very good. All right, that is Friday at the World Cup. We look forward to tomorrow, where we're going to have 4 games, as Graham mentioned. We've got Qatar, Switzerland, the aforementioned, Brazil, Morocco. After that, we've got Haiti versus Scotland.
Oh dear.
And then we wrap it up at midnight Eastern time with the kickoff between Australia and Turkey. Graham, any of those games stand out to you?
Yeah, I think Australia-Turkey is the one I'm going to be looking forward to most. No, of course, it's going to be Haiti-Scotland, which I am both looking forward to and also wish wouldn't happen. Just terrified about the prospect of that match. It'll genuinely be very surreal. I know a lot of people who are going to that game, jealous of the people who are going to be out in Boston for that match. Have no idea how I'm going to, we were talking a little bit about this earlier. I have no idea how I'm going to react. Sport, I'm not an emotional person, but sport does tend to make me quite emotional. So
did you see? I just got a text about McTominay. Apparently,
no, do not.
Is he still pooping?
See, this is the thing. He's been in Italy eating that fine produce for the last couple of years. He's been in the US for a week.
Don't blame
and
the whole US.
He's on the toilet.
Where has he been? Where has he been?
He's obviously not had the pure Carolinian diet he should have had. That's what's happened to him. We all know that.
It's vinegar barbecue would have cured all his ills.
Yeah,
there you go.
But just to highlight another match, Brazil-Morocco's not bad either, right? That's a cracker of a game. And I genuinely as good as Brazil could be, Morocco might be better. Like, it would not surprise me at all if Morocco were to win that match. So I think that's the first sort of like true heavyweight, really compelling matchup of the World Cup so far.
I would agree with that. At the same time, it is also the game that I feel like could have two teams that make deep runs and are electrifying. And it could be two teams that like the wheels fully fall off, because Morocco have been through a lot and I think are coming in with a chip on their shoulder. And I said this in my preview of them. I think that they either like hit the ground running and are the like electric, like consistent Morocco that we've seen, or maybe they never get first gear. And I think the same can go for Brazil, which is such an insane thing to say about a Brazil team, as we talked about last night, that have all the talent they have. It's Brazil, but then also have Carlo Ancelotti, who's like the manager that it feels like they have needed to find a way to have some tactics, but a lot of vibes, have a very suggestive eyebrow when needed, and just a lot of like calm and poise on the touchline. It does feel like it's a match made in heaven, and it should lead to great things. And it feels the same way about Morocco and the changes they've made. So I have no idea what's going to happen there, but I think it's going to be electrifying. And I will say there's no chance there's a 0-0 draw there. And I mean that sincerely, not even trying to reverse jinx it.
There we go. Excellent stuff. The first heavyweight group stage game. Looking forward to that very much indeed. And Graham, we hope for your sake that Scotland have a Boston Wee party. A Boston Wee? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you it.
Thank you.
I'm feeling in a generous mood.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you there. We appreciate you, listener, for sticking us with.
Like Scottish people say "wee," like a wee bit.
That was good boy
We
play, I
laugh.
thought.
It was such a good episode. And then that had to happen. Nah, it was good. You're good. It was funny.
Thanks, Taylor Rockwell. Thank you for everything you've done in this episode, sir.
Thank you, my friend, including repping the US. That was very kind of you. Ryan went and changed for this episode to put that shirt on. Such is his character and commitment.
Indeed, indeed. I channeled my inner Graham Ruthven and changed my shirt during the day, something he does at least 6 times. Graham Ruthven, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
And thank you, Joe Lowry, both the one who left us a voice note in this one and the one made of towels sitting next to us on our stream. Listener, thank you again. And watcher, thank you again for joining us. As a reminder, we'll be coming to you after full time every day in this group stage. But for now, bye.